right? He's been waiting by. He's just, he loved that stories. He loved everything we were just talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, it's our weekly visit with Rob Staton from SeahawksDraftBlog.com. You never know where the show's going, Rob. It's all brought to you by Superior Linen Service, family owned and operated since 1926. Committed to delivering the highest quality products and services to the greater Puget Sound area. Get a free quote today, suplinen.com. Give them a call, 253-383-2636. Did you enjoy the prank on Sanders or no?
I don't really have an opinion on it, really. I think it's unfortunate. I think that I wouldn't want to be Shedeur Sanders in that situation, but at the end of the day, no one's been seriously hurt, have they? It's just a prank, and the guy who was behind it, this young guy, has probably felt the full force of the Atlanta Falcons defensive coordinator father that he's had this week. So I guess everybody moves on now, but. I thought it was an interesting story though with Shedeur Sanders, and I think it's a good example for anybody coming into the draft next year. If you're going to go to the Shrine Game or the Senior Bowl, throw a football. If you're going to go to the Combine, do a workout, throw a football. If you're going to do interviews, take them seriously, and I hope that is a lesson for a lot of players next year.
Yeah, it was surprising because there was so much talk about him and where he was going to go. He was such a huge storyline going into it. And I think there was some talk that, hey, if gets past the Giants at 3, where will he end up? Everyone talked about the Steelers at 21. I don't think anyone, at least maybe there was somebody that said, hey, will he fall out of the first round? But certainly, if he does, it'd be early second. Not the slide that he had. That was a hell of a slide. And I remember Mike Garafolo saying something to me the day of the draft, and he goes, I don't want to be cruel. But the best thing that could happen with him from an entertainment standpoint is for him to slide, because it's such a huge storyline. And it did. And it took over the NFL world.
Yeah. He was the 5th quarterback on my board. And in part, that was because of some of the stuff that was being talked about his approach and his application. And on tape, he wasn't even that good. And he just got this completely wrong. He and his father got this completely wrong. To be approaching this like he was a Trevor Lawrence or an Andrew Luck, one of these players who, well, of course they're going to go 1st overall, 2nd overall, or whatever. They completely made a mistake there. And the NFL has decided, no, not for us. And once you drop so far, teams don't want the noisy backup quarterback, do they? They want the backup quarterback that you don't know. And when it got to the 5th round, I thought he may well go undrafted here. And I was a little bit surprised that Cleveland has invited this on themselves now. I suppose it's an opportunity for them because they don't have a good quarterback. So if he wins the job, they may end up sort of looking extremely wise from this. But they've just invited a circus to their training camp. And good luck to Kevin Stefanski, because if there is one franchise who needs no drama involving any quarterbacks right now, it's probably the Cleveland Browns.
All right, where did you have, you said you had him 5th. Where did you have Jalen Milroe on your quarterbacks?
Jaylen Milroe was in the same, I had them all kind of bulked in the same range, which was in that, let me find the board. I just clicked off it now. I had them all kind of bulked in the same range. I think he was my 4th quarterback, which is where he went. So they got him in kind of the area that I thought I had him as a fringe 2nd or 3rd rounder. So I think late 3rd round, there's probably a little bit of value there just because of the traits. I don't think that, Puck, we can sit here and say there's a very good chance that he's going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. But I think it's perfectly understandable why they took a chance there. It's a really good dart throw. Go and see if you can hit the bullseye. And if you do, you've got a star. And if it doesn't work out, who cares? Like, it's a late 3rd round pick. No one's going to remember that if it doesn't work out. And if it does work out, wow, the benefits are huge. You could end up with another Lamar Jackson. So I think it was a great pick for the Seahawks and a savvy move on their behalf.
Well, because we talked about him, leading the final show that we did before the draft, that you just had this feeling that now he didn't get late 1st round or early 2nd, but you just had a feeling that, hey, he just kind of feels like a Seahawk guy. Yeah, because of all the things you kind of just laid out, right? With Macdonald's, background in Baltimore, dealing with Lamar Jackson, them being in the market for a quarterback this year, his size, the athleticism, all the things that we talk about that John Schneider has in the past has shown to like those traits in a quarterback, and they pulled it off. And to your point, I just couldn't agree more. I mean, if If it doesn't work out, okay, it's a third-round pick. You move on. But if it does work out, I mean, you've just locked up a franchise quarterback for 10 years, 10 plus years. It's
Exactly.
unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be incredible. And, you know, I think on the short term that the preseason games are going to be interesting. Like some of those preseason games can be a real slog. And as someone who gets to the preseason games, tells myself I'm not going to stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning and watch this game, and then inevitably do end up staying up till 3 o'clock and watching these games, to have someone entertaining to watch will be a huge boost. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what he can do. And I think this is an interesting team now. I think, you know, they took the offensive lineman first, which, you know, I think everybody was kind of hoping for. I think they got value with virtually every pick that they had in the draft. And when you have 11 picks, that's very hard to do. I think there's a positivity around the fan base off the back of this draft for most people. And I think there's a momentum behind the Seahawks now. I'm as energized as a Seahawks fan today as I have been in years. So I can't wait for the season. It's a shame that it's the 30th of April and not the 30th of August, because we've got such a long time to wait now until the season gets here. But I think they've put themselves in a great place to have a very interesting 2025 season.
They said, you know, in the press conference, you know, and some had an issue with it. Hey, Sam Darnold's going to be on the field 90% of the time, and just, you know, saying that, hey, listen, we're going to get Milroe on the field to do something. And I think we can all just kind of guess what kind of role he's going to have on the field. At the same time, they were quick to say, hey, he's a quarterback. That's how we view him. We're going to develop him as a quarterback. But listen, I think that they're saying that just to kind of save face a little bit and make sure that Milroe understands that, yes, they value everything he brings to the field and all the skill sets that are very unique, but we do long-term view you as a quarterback. But in the short term, he's not going to be just like Taysom Hill, because, I mean, Taysom Hill's running routes and doing a bunch of different stuff. But in those short yardage situations, goal line, yeah, you're going to see him in there. He's not necessarily going to be throwing the football.
Yeah, I think it's also about respect. I think when you draft a quarterback in round 3, if you were to immediately come out in the first press conference afterwards and go, yeah, he's Taysom Hill, it's almost like a backhanded compliment, isn't it? It's almost like saying, well, Taysom Hill couldn't play quarterback in the NFL. The Saints gave him a year to try and replace Drew Brees and then gave up halfway through that season and decided he couldn't do it. So you don't want to sort of make him feel he's onto a loser already before he's even had his first training camp. You know, he's a quarterback, you know, we really believe in him. But like you say, inevitably there will be moments in a game where, like a short yardage situation, a red zone opportunity, maybe just a 1st and 10 and you want to chuck him out there and you have some trickery and it keeps an opponent guessing. I think that's absolutely fine and can help him in his development. You know, getting him out on the field and just even having a feel for what it's like to be on an NFL football field, taking a snap under center, for example, will be, you know, a useful experience for him. And, you know, I just like everything about it. I like that plan. I like the draft that they've had. I like the direction. I think this is the kind of, I've been saying for years, and there's a few of us who've been talking about this for a while, that the Seahawks needed a transformational draft. You know, they needed something whereby you thought that was the moment. That was the draft class that just took this team from good to great again. And it feels as if this could be that class. Now, they've got to show it, and these players have got to prove that they warrant that level of optimism. But I think that this could be that kind of transformational draft. And if they have that, then, you know, in the next 2 or 3 years, we could be talking about a Seahawks team that are very interesting in the NFC.
They did something that it feels like that they never do, and that's the obvious pick. And we talked a lot about just, everyone's going to mock Grey Zabel to him. Grey Zabel this, Grey Zabel that. And I'm like, you know what? All this talk about fucking Grey Zabel, and they're not going to get Grey Zabel. And then they get Grey Zabel.
Mm.
I mean, it was like, oh my God, they actually pulled it off. Did they, by selecting, I know you like the pick, did they do enough to address the offensive line, you think?
Yeah, I think so, because I thought Elijah Arroyo was a fantastic pick at number 50. And as much as I liked Tate Ratledge and would have been over the moon to have Grey Zabel and Tate Ratledge, you know, Elijah Arroyo was my 17th best player in the draft. So I'm not going to quibble about them taking him instead. You know, Nick Emenwari, who they traded up for, you know, was not my favorite player in the draft. I think I had him as the 32nd best player. So it's about par for where he should have gone. But clearly, Mike Macdonald deserves some faith in when he sees a player that he wants to trade up for to go and get. I'm going to just sort of accept that his opinion's probably right on that one, and let's see what Evan Warry can do. And then, you're looking across at the other players. I think Bryce Cabeldue, he is somebody who he had the fourth most explosive testing results of any of the offensive linemen at the combine. And, when you are that explosive, you've got a chance of making it in the NFL. His testing profile is very similar, funnily enough, to Grey Zabel. So I actually think we could see a future where Christian Haynes doesn't work out and Christian Haynes is not the starter. And you actually have Grey Zabel and Bryce Cabeldue as the starters. And then, I need to study him. It's one of the things I'm going to do this week. I am going to take a break from everything. But I am going to, before I do that, I will have a look at Mason Richmond and see what he has to offer. Because even he, seems like somebody who could be in the running here, whether that's interior or, as a kind of a swing tackle. So I think there's interesting players there. I want to see what the new scheme looks like. I want to see what these coaches can do when they get their hands on these players. But I think first and foremost, when you draft somebody like Grey Zabel, that will elevate the O-line performance. I think he will drive things. I think it'd be good for Charles Cross to have him next to him. I think it'd be good for the centers. And I'm quite optimistic that by game 7 or 8 next season, we might see a much improved offensive line.
He just looks the part. He looks the part. He sounds the part.
Yeah.
They've been missing a leader on that offensive line since Max Unger left.
Yeah.
Like a real vocal leader, but you got to be good, right? I mean, that's obvious to everyone. You got to be good. You can't be a leader when you're not good. And they've been missing that guy. They've been missing that alpha male on that offensive line that is willing to just murder the guy across from him. But do it in an articulate way afterwards. And that's what he is. He's everything. The look, the sound, the aggression he plays with. I mean, I'm putting too much probably on his plate for a rookie, but they need that. They need that type of guy because they don't have it. Abe Lucas isn't that guy. Charles Cross isn't that guy. They're kind of quiet. They're very introverted, both of them. You need that guy that just kind of lives, breathes, mauling football.
You do. And when you watch him on tape, he does everything well. Combo blocks very well. You need to do that in the zone blocking scheme. He can pull. He's very easy on his feet. Can move around the field with ease, whether that's coming across the line or whether it's getting to the second level. When he latches on to a second level target, he will hammer them. He's a finisher. What you want to see with your offensive lineman is the main thing for me. Do they finish their blocks? Like Jonas Savanair, who went quite early in the second round, just never finished. And it was really frustrating to watch on tape. Like, just bury somebody, please. And Grey Zabel buries people, pretty much every time that he gets an opportunity to. That's what you want to see. But then, there's sort of close quarters if he's in a phone booth. If it is a short yardage situation, he's got the size, he's got the technique to be very, very good in those situations as well. So, you don't want to praise him too much before he's played a single down, but he is the kind of player who has come into the league in recent years and has ended up quickly becoming one of the top interior offensive linemen. His testing profile matches, a Tristan Wirfs, who went in a very similar range in the first round. It matches the likes of Creed Humphrey, who Seattle famously didn't take, or Zach Tom, or a Frank Ragnow. These are players who've gone on to become exceptional interior offensive linemen. It will not surprise me if in 5 years' time we're talking about Grey Zabel, health permitting, if he stays healthy, everything works, then he could be one of the top interior offensive linemen in the league. And that is exactly what you said. They needed somebody like that who can be that focal point on the line. And, Charles Cross, with the greatest respect to him, and even Abe Lucas, who I love, they're not particularly explosive players. You need explosive traits to be top offensive lineman. In my opinion, the data says that's what you have to be. He is that. I think it's an excellent pick, and I think he was well worth a top 20 selection.
What word or phrase or words would you use to summarize this class or describe it?
Fine. Athletic. It's incredibly athletic. I just think exciting is another word that I would use, because I think you have all the way through. Sometimes you go through a draft class and you think, yeah, okay, they've took that. I thought that last year. I didn't think they had a particularly amazing day 3 last year. And kudos to the linebacker Tyrese Knight and to AJ Barner for playing, beyond expectations as a rookie. I thought the cornerbacks were kind of like, that they took, and one of them got cut before the season even started. And some of the later rounders I wasn't that impressed with. When I look at this class, so, You expect Zabel and Emenwari and Arroyo to start. We'll see with Milroe, but no one expects him to start quickly. Riley Mills had as many pressures last season as Mason Graham, who was the 5th overall pick. He had the 6th best pass rush win percentage amongst defensive tackles, and he had the most sacks. And when I watched him on tape, I was thinking, what am I missing here? I put him in the 2nd round, and then I moved him down around when he tore his ACL at the end of the season, because you have to move him down around if they get a serious injury. He did. But you're talking about somebody who could have been a 2nd round pick if he was fully healthy. He would have blown the combine up. He's an exceptional athlete. So there's major potential. Torrey Horton looked like a starter on tape before his injury, and he's not got a serious injury. This is not something that, is going to hold him back. He ran a 4.4 at the combine, for crying out loud. Like, he's there. Robbie Oots, people were complaining about that pick, but they clearly got a role for this guy. And I love the idea of bringing in a 290-pound fullback with a mustache.
My favorite pick. He's my favorite. Just that guy, he is a throwback to how football used to be played. If that guy doesn't have a neck roll on this season, and I joked yesterday, who would I joke with Danny Kelly? I'm like, that guy is going to have a T-shirt on that says, "I'm pro CTE." That's how this guy. And listen, I'm not a laughing matter. I'm just saying this is the violence this guy wants to play with.
Yeah, and he name-checked Patrick Ricard, the Baltimore Ravens fullback, when he was in his press conference. There you go. Yeah. That's what they've got. That's what they need. And then just to finish off the draft class, because this is all of these players. Can you imagine Bryce Cabeldue starting? Yes, we've talked about that. Damian Martinez, if you watch the right game puck, he is running through tackles. He's got a couple of proper beast mode runs where he's running through. He's got like 7 guys hanging off him. He scored 1 touchdown, I think, against Louisville, which was unbelievable. He is I thought, a 4th rounder that you got in the 7th. Mason Richmond, I'm going to say, I interviewed Ricky White in January, and I thought there was a little bit of a poor man's Nuke Hopkins to his game. He's an exceptional special teamer. I think he can make a career out of this in the NFL. And then even in the undrafted free agents, they got Zy Alexander, who was the best available cornerback on my board. I gave him a 4th round grade. Jackson Woodard, who was the best available linebacker after the draft, 4th round grade. And Jared Ivey, who's got some character things, didn't test very well, but was the 2nd best defensive lineman available after the draft. They got him. I give him a 4th or 5th round grade. So you're talking about a good 14 players here who have got a chance, to be something. And I think John Schneider has done an outstanding job with Mike Macdonald in this draft, and I hope it works out. Yeah, but it's an unbelievable draft class.
And you never know. I mean, no one ever knows with these drafts, and they can all look good on paper. It just looks really good on paper what they did and what they addressed. And I said it the second I found out they got Damian Martinez in the 7th round, I was just like, it's thievery. That's thievery. Yeah. I mean, just. Even what he did at Miami. Just don't even look at Miami tape. Go look what this guy did at Oregon State. This guy was an animal at Oregon State. Yeah. And I mean, he is we hate the comp game, right? Even Warrior's going to get compared to Cam Chancellor. We're going to compare Martinez to Beast Mode. But he is. I mean, that's how he plays. His style of football is just like that. And I like the White pick. I even like the White pick. Why? Special teamer. Yeah. The guy was the Mountain West Special Teams Player of the Year. Blocked 4 punts last year. So he understands I'm willing to do anything to make the football team. I'll play special teams. Not a lot of people want to do that. That just people don't want to sign up for special teams. He's all in. And a little note about this class that I love. I love all the team captains they got. All the team captains, 2-time team captains, multiple. And then the fact that 8 of their 11 players, and I can really make a case that 2 of them don't really count, didn't transfer. Stayed at the schools all the time. And again, that's a small thing for me, but I think it's a big thing. I think that's commitment. That's seeing something through and staying with your original team. I think it's a very important. That little fact.
Yeah, I think that's important too. I think college football for many of us has been ruined, in recent history just because of this nonsense about, you never realize who's playing for who. Like, I've got a whole bunch of players listed that didn't declare for the draft. And I have a list of players who've returned and a list of players who've transferred, and they're the same size. And it shouldn't be that way. I should be able to throw on a Clemson game and know that, the players that I watched at Clemson didn't declare are going to be there, next year. And, the same for some of these other teams. And the smaller schools, and I don't mean sort of the small schools. I mean, like just not in the Big Ten or the ASEC, are just going to get picked off. It's ridiculous. So to sort of see that commitment, I just want to say a quick thing on Ricky White, because he was one of my favorite players in sort of the regular season. When you watched UNLV, he is a great special teamer. I will say he had like an unstoppable quality to him. You just knew that every UNLV game that you put on, and they don't have a great quarterback, they don't have an amazing offense, you just knew you couldn't cover him. He was going to get his plays. And he has got a lot of talent. And when I interviewed him, I said, who do we need to know about who, you've played with or against? And he said, I need to highlight Jackson Woodard, who's the linebacker on our team. He is so underrated. And then I went and watched him straight after that, and I agreed, which is why I gave him the 4th round grade. And they got him as an undrafted free agent. So I think he's done a phenomenal job, John Schneider. Hats off to him. Hats off to him.
All right, take a break for a bit. We'll discuss our off-season plans, but take a break, catch up with reinvest yourself into your family, will you, please?
Yeah, I mean, if I do actually find time for my family,
okay,
which is maybe unbelievable to some people. I'm that, but can I just say before I finish, I want to say thank you to everybody who's just had some of our coverage over over this draft season again, whether it's on this or whether it's on my channel or on the blog. It's been crazy how many people have got involved over the last few days, and the support I really appreciate it. So I just want to take every chance that I can to say thank you to everybody for giving a crap what someone in Rotherham thinks about the NFL and the draft. So it's really appreciated.
Well, and I'll extend that thank you to you. I appreciate you doing this every single week. I love chatting with you, and we'll continue this throughout. But always appreciate the time. As always, appreciate all your hard work and your passion for this. It truly is unmatched, Rob. So thank you. Make sure the kids remember your name.
Yes,
your wife. Okay. All right. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Rob.
See you.